Okay, so ready to dive into something kind of deep.
Always.
It's something we all deal with every single day, multiple times a day probably. But we don't often stop and think about it,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Saying no, like actually saying the word no.
Oh, yeah. It's a powerful word.
It really is. And you wouldn't believe it, but the way we're going to look at this today, the starting point, is actually this English learning story.
Interesting.
I know, right?
Hmm.
About this kid named Jake. And Jake has a serious problem with saying no.
He just can't do it, huh?
Nope. But trust me, this deep dive, it goes way beyond just basic vocabulary.
I'm intrigued.
We're going to uncover why that little two-letter word can feel like a loaded weapon.
Totally. It can feel so heavy sometimes. Like there are all of these
Yeah.
implications.
Exactly. And it ties into bigger things too, like self-respect and even setting boundaries.
You hit the nail on the head. Saying no isn't just about declining a request. It's this whole psychological and social thing, and we often really struggle with it.
Yeah, totally. And in the story, Jake, well, he's like the ultimate yes man. Which is kind of funny at first. Just picture this. He's totally overloaded with homework. He's walking like 5 dogs when he's
You
exhausted.
can see it now.
All because he can't just say no.
Oh, I've been there.
I bet we all have, right? Like, how many times have you found yourself drowning in commitments just because you felt like you had to say yes?
Oh, countless times. I think the story really captures that internal struggle well. Jake wants to be seen as kind, helpful.
Right. He wants people to like him.
Exactly. And the story actually defines kind as nice and caring for others, but at the same time, he's terrified of upsetting anyone. He thinks saying no will automatically make people angry or reject him.
It's like he thinks it's going to ruin relationships.
Right. And that fear, it's not just Jake's thing. There's a ton of research out there about compliance and social pressure. Like, as humans, we are wired to avoid being ostracized.
Wow. So it's like deep down, we're all kind of programmed to avoid conflict.
In a way, yeah. It's part of our survival instinct.
Okay, that makes sense. But constantly saying yes, that can't be good for us in the long run.
Not really, no.
I mean, how does this tie into the idea of self-respect that keeps coming up in the story, right?
Well, that's where Jake's mom swoops in with this amazing advice. She says, saying no doesn't mean you're rude. It means you respect yourself, too.
Oh, that's good.
Right. And I think that's key. Think of self-respect as the foundation for setting healthy boundaries. If you don't value your own time, your own needs, how can you expect other people to?
It's like you're teaching people how to treat you.
Exactly. It's like this unspoken agreement you have with yourself. When you constantly break that agreement by saying yes to things you don't want to do, you start chipping away at your self-worth.
Whoa. So it's not selfish to say no.
Not at all.
Because I feel like we're always told to be selfless,
Mm.
put others first, that kind of thing.
I get that.
How do we balance that with respecting ourselves?
It's not about being selfish. It's about being assertive. It's about recognizing your limits. Think of it this way. If you're constantly running on empty because you're saying yes to everyone else, how can you possibly show up fully for the things that really matter?
That's a really good point.
Right. That's where saying no becomes an act of self-preservation. It lets you invest your energy where it truly counts.
Yeah.
And it's not about shutting people out. It's about making conscious choices.
Okay, yeah. I'm starting to see why this is way more than just an English lesson.
It's a life lesson for sure.
So how does Jake actually put this into practice? Like, how does he start saying no?
So the big turning point in the story happens when Jake finally works up the courage to say no to his friend Tom.
What was Tom asking for?
Tom wanted Jake to do his homework for him.
Classic Tom.
And it's fascinating because the moment Jake says no, his whole demeanor changes. He instantly feels happier, lighter.
Not weighed down by that obligation.
Exactly. And that relief, it's directly tied to setting a boundary. It's about honoring his own needs for once.
So there's a real payoff to saying no, right? It's not just about avoiding something you don't want to do.
Definitely not.
It's about gaining something too. Like peace of mind, maybe even time to pursue things you actually enjoy.
You got it. And there's a lot of research to back that up, too. Studies have shown that people who are comfortable setting boundaries, they tend to experience less stress, have better mental health, and even
Really?
stronger relationships.
Hold on. Stronger relationships.
Mm.
How does saying no lead to better relationships? I would think it would do the opposite.
I know, it seems counterintuitive, but it makes sense when you think about it.
Okay, explain it to me.
Well, when you're honest about your limits, you're preventing resentment from building up. If you're always saying yes when you really want to say no, Eventually, you're going to start resenting the person who's asking.
Oh, that's so true.
And on the flip side, when you say no, you're also modeling healthy behavior for other people. It gives them permission to do the same.
Oh, that's interesting. Like it makes it more acceptable for them to set boundaries too.
Exactly.
So beyond Jake and his homework struggles, how else can we apply this no thing in our own lives?
It's really about identifying your own pressure points. Think about it. What are the situations that always leave you feeling drained or resentful?
Ooh, like I hate it when I hate it when people ask me to do something and I say yes,
Yeah.
but then later I realize I have to cancel other plans to do the thing I said yes to.
Yeah.
And then I feel bad about canceling, but I also feel resentful that I had to cancel in the first place.
That's a perfect example. Because in those moments, it's like, you know you should say no, but
But then you overthink it.
you overthink it. You worry about disappointing the other person or coming off as rude. But remember, saying no is not about being rude. It's about protecting your time and energy. It's about prioritizing yourself.
It's almost like mastering no can actually free you up to say a more genuine yes to the things that truly matter.
Absolutely, because you're making a conscious choice. You're not just reacting out of obligation or guilt.
You're in control.
Exactly. You're aligning your actions with your values.
Okay, listener, I know we've thrown a lot at you today,
It's a lot to unpack, for sure.
but here's a final thought to chew on, maybe on your commute home or while you're doing the dishes. Could getting really, really good at saying no actually make you better at saying yes? Like, could it make your yeses more meaningful?
That's a great question to ponder.
It is, right? Think about that as you navigate your own yes and no dilemmas this week. And thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
See you next time.